Surprised me a little bit that the Brewers are making a change at hitting coach. We'll get to the mailbag. And who's playing third base? That's going to be a standard question all offseason until they fix it. All that and more coming up on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Numbers weren't bad, some a little deceiving, but we'll get to that with their offense coming up here in a little bit. Good to have you along here. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin. Proud host of Locked On Brewers. Still wish we were playing, but Major League Baseball got what it wanted. You know, they got what they wanted. They got the Yankees in there, and they got the Dodgers in there. They want the Dodgers in there with Shohei, of course. They want him. I mean, every other alert I get on my phone is about Shohei. I just got an alert 5 minutes before I came on the show here. Aaron Judge bragging about Shohei. If he was bragging about Christian Yelich or Jackson Chourio, you'd never hear anything. But Shohei, they are marketing Shohei to the highest in Major League Baseball. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Shohei. We're here to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. I wish they were playing, but they're not, and there's several reasons for that. But I was caught off guard when they made a change at their hitting coach. This didn't, and I'm not saying it's a wrong move, but I'm just saying it caught me a little bit off guard. I'm not saying it's a right move either. This episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase at Gametime. See, me, I always look at it like it's the Jimmies and the Joes, because a great offense can make you look spectacular as a hitting coach. All right. And when you're hitting it all and everything is going right, I mean, you look like a genius. I mean, that goes for any coaching job or manager's job in baseball. The players are the ones. Okay. Ultimately, it's the guys in the field who do the job. I don't really look at it as, well, we got to fire the hitting coach. And I know we hear a lot of that. And the pitching was really good this past year for the Brewers. So everybody wants to give Chris Hook a contract extension. Just like with Lake Johnson when he went down to Cincinnati. Oh, we lost Johnson. What are we going to do? Well, the Brewers were able to fix that. It's all about talent. All about talent. You got to have talent to win. That's why the Yankees and Dodgers are playing in the World Series. Not because they're hitting coach. Not because of anything smart that Dave Roberts doesn't know any less about baseball than Pat Murphy. Okay, no, not at all. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. But with that said, the Brewers did make a little surprise making a switch with the hitting coach. LeBoeuf, who's been with the Brewers organization for 15 years in the minor league system, minor league hitting coach down at AAA Nashville, cancer survivor, 64 years old, getting the call up to the major league level. My first thought was, boy, great for him. So remember the story about 10 years ago that he had cancer and he went through all sorts of treatment and all that, and it didn't look good there for a while, but he bounced back amazingly, and now he's doing great, and now he's getting a shot at the major leagues. How many people get a shot at the major leagues at 64? I guess Pat Murphy got his first manager's job. Well, he was the interim manager for a while in San Diego, but the first full-time, no doubt about it, manager's job with the Milwaukee Brewers when he was 64, 65. So he'll be our hitting coach. And I don't want to hear, and it was great this whole season, well, he can't relate to the players. We heard that when Ken Maka was here. You know, people just thought that he can't relate to the players. And for me, I don't care how old the guy is. I don't do the ageism thing where I say, well, the guy's too old to be coaching this team. Oh, he's too young to be coaching. If you can do it, you can do it. So great. 64 years old, hitting coach. They bring him up and they fire Ozzie Timmons. They get rid of Ozzie Timmons, and this was a little surprise. And I'm not saying, again, that a change was necessary. I'm not saying a change wasn't necessary. I'm just surprised the Brewers did this. So haven't heard an official word why they did this. I'm still kind of a mystery to me, except for we wish Ozzie Timmons well, and LeBoeuf is going to do good things and all that, and he's put his time in and the organization. So Al LeBoeuf also brings in Eric Tyson as the hitting coach. Connor Dawson, who was one of the hitting coaches, stays on as an assistant. So now we have 3 hitting coaches. There was a time, boys and girls, and we only had 1 hitting coach on the team. But I guess you look at the NBA, they have 15 assistant coaches on the staff. I don't know why we need 3 hitting coaches, but it seems like it's expanded there. So there's a hitting coach for every 3 guys in the starting lineup. Just amazing. Plus all the analytic guys in the front office analyzing all the data. And that's what it's coming down to. These guys like to do, they don't want to do the eye test anymore. They want to do analytical stuff. But Al LeBoeuf, the new hitting coach, Eric Tyson, Connor Dawson, the way I got it looked at, they are the assistants. They are the assistants. But you look at some of the numbers. And I was just watching a video before I came on. Al LeBoeuf down at, it was a feature that Vinny Rottino had done. A really nice feature. Anything Vinny does is excellent. Vinny was down in Nashville. I think this was a couple of years ago. Did a feature on Al LeBoeuf, the hitting coach. And then some of the video they showed was Al LeBoeuf instructing Joey Weimer. I'm not so sure that was a good example, but that's who happened to be in the video. But, Al was trying to teach Joey a thing or two about hitting. But here's where the Brewers finished offensively in some of these categories. They were 8th in batting average last year, 8th in batting average, 16th in home runs, 13th in slugging percentage, 10th in OPS, 6th in RBIs. Now those numbers, it runs 6th. Runs 6th. I think that amazes me, because how many times, as I always say, we're sitting here, and even these playoff games, we're sitting here in the 6th or 7th inning, Brewers got 1 or nothing on the board. That was like that when one of those playoff games too. But that's like a microcosm of the entire season for the Brewers. That's the way they are. I think that's 6 runs, that's 6th in the league in runs, or 6th in baseball in runs. That's got to be skewed. 6th in baseball in runs, that's got to be skewed. Because there's sometimes, when they jump on a pitcher and they'll put up double-digit runs. But there wasn't a heck of a lot of consistency. There hasn't been in the last several years with this offense. Now, early in the season, the Brewers were hitting in the clutch. You might remember, that opening series against the Mets and against Cincinnati, we were talking about 1 of 13 with runners in scoring position. We weren't doing a lot of that stuff. As the season went on, some of that stuff that popped up when Counsell was here, the other guy, that seemed to surface. But 6th in runs, you would never guess this team would be 6th in runs. So I think that's sometimes stats can be skewed. 9th in strikeouts, 16th in home runs. Now that's not on the hitting coach. All right, that's in general manager makeup of the team. 16th in home runs, 16th in home runs. That's not the hitting coach at all. I mean, you're either a big bopper or you're not. Not enough of those type of guys on this team, and that's just the way it was. The guys they were counting on 8 home runs, like Rhys Hoskins, and he had his 26 home runs. Injured for a little bit, was not great. I expected more home runs from him. Batting average was not great. And Christian Yelich, obviously, he missed another big portion, another chunk of the season. But he really isn't a power hitter on this team as well. Adames hit his home runs. Chourio hit his. But that's why they need a big bat at third base. That's why they need to improve that home run mark. 16th in the league in home runs, and the switching pitching coaches or switching hitting coaches is not going to do it. And when spring training comes, we're talking about, this whole little philosophy that this guy's got coming in, Al LeBoeuf. And I'm sure, again, he does a heck of a job, but still, get me talent, get me guys who could play, score me some runs. Let's not be 16th in the league in home runs, 6th in the league in runs. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. That number is definitely skewed. This team definitely had problems scoring runs, and that's not on the manager. It's not on the hitting coach. That's on the Jimmies and Joes, or that's on the GM who didn't field a team that was good enough. All right, we'll get to some mailbag stuff coming up next. A couple of you guys had some questions here. We'll get to that coming up next here. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. All right, Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along here. As we got some more news probably coming up here in the next couple of weeks when the World Series ends. Of course, the free agency hits, and that'll be chaos. Brewers won't be going after Soto like some of you guys wanted to. I saw that. Not happening. I know you guys are just joking. I'm going to mention another name coming up here in a little bit as far as third base. That's coming up here in a little bit. By the way, you get our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, all the major downloads. Wherever you download your podcast, that's where you can get Locked On Brewers. We're the number one Brewers podcast on the internet. And of course, please go to our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, like I said, and please, that'll alert you every time we drop an episode, and that helps support the podcast as well. All right, Game Time. Game Time is a great way to go if you want to go to the Bucks game on Friday night, or if you Bucks games, Badger games, you name it, here in the state of Wisconsin. Concerts, theaters, they have flash deals, exclusive in-app deals on select tickets ahead of the game or event. They have zone deals where you punch the zone, they'll give you a price there, and you'll even save even more on that section. All in pricing. You got to use the toggling feature on that to get all the price up front, so you don't get a big surprise at the end. Some of these tickets outlets out there, you say, well, you're paying $30, and by the end of it, you're paying $80. You don't get that with Game Time because you just got the toggling feature where you can get all the total, all up front. Seat views, my favorite part is the panoramic view from your seat in the app. Before you buy, you can see exactly where you're sitting. Get the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. But you got to download the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. Again, the terms apply. You buy $100 worth of Bucks tickets on Friday night, you get $20 off. You get them for $80. Terms apply again. Create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed with Game Time. All right. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day here on Locked On Brewers. Some of you guys had some questions. I put that out there. We're going to try to do a mailbag once a week here on the show. Brock says the Brewers have apparently been listed as a potential landing spot for Paul Goldschmidt. Yes. Would you want him as a first base DH to split with Hoskins, or would this be a bad move? Seems like a McCutchen deal from a few years ago, but Goldie has always been good at Miller Park. Well, and FanDuel, if Hoskins opts in, they're not going to be paying two guys to play first base with that. They're not going to be paying big bucks to both of those guys. And as far as DH, I think you got to save some of the DH spot for Christian Yelich, depending on what he's going to do next season. I mean, how the back responds. He's not going to be playing every day left field, but you want his bat in the lineup. You want him to DH. And of course, same thing with Contreras. Obviously, you can't have him catch every day. He plays the DH, but you can't sign Goldschmidt and think, well, we're going to put him at DH, because you got that place, you got that the DH spot spoken for already with Yelich and Contreras when he's not playing. But if Hoskins doesn't sign, if he does not pick up that $18 million option, then I think it's ball game with Goldschmidt. Then it's somebody they're definitely interested in. We'll see. But Bob Nightingale reported at the end of the season that the Brewers were definitely interested in keeping an eye on that situation in St. Louis. But I'm sure that hinges on what Hoskins does with his deal. M. Shark says, assuming Adames is gone, do you think the Brewers are sold on Tyler Black at third? Feel like Ortiz and Ortang in the infield together, they're missing another power bat. They certainly are. I've been talking about that. I don't think so. Well, Tyler Black didn't show me a lot. And there was times toward the end of the year, they put him like fourth or fifth in the order. I was like, what is that all about? They're force feeding him into the middle part of the order, and he's just not ready for that. And maybe he's just not good enough for that at the major league level. So I think the jury definitely is still out on Tyler Black. They don't know what they got there, but so far, I mean, he hasn't overwhelmed anybody when he's come up here and done a few things. All right, let's get to a few others. I know a lot of you on my Twitter account yesterday and on YouTube, you had questions about, my episode yesterday was about I think Frelick or Mitchell, one of those are going to be traded. Or you could use one of those as trade bait. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just like talking where I shouldn't be talking about that, but I put that out there. I haven't heard anything. I've heard any information on it. I'm just throwing that out there. That's what we do in the media. We throw stuff out there and kind of guess on a few things. Not guess on a few things, but throw a few ideas out there. That's what we do. And like last offseason, I threw out Pete Alonso. Would have looked good in a Brewer uniform last year, although he struggled. But he's going to have to hit the free agent market, and he's not coming to Milwaukee. That's one of our questions. Where do you think Pete Alonso is going to end up, Chuck? Pete Alonso, I think, is going to end up either back with the Mets or the Cubs or maybe the Cardinals. I think he might be in our division. The Cubs almost traded for him last year. They were interested in it. Pete Alonso could be a guy we face on a regular basis. They have Michael Busch over there in Chicago, but maybe that's where Alonso ends up. He's not ending up here. I wanted him last year when he was still under the Brewers salary structure. He was still feasible. Now he's not feasible anymore. Mike says, I think Mitchell playing a full season could hit 20 home runs, Chuck. Frelick would be the one to try and trade for an upgrade on the roster. I agree. I think Mitchell going into the season next year is my starting center fielder, provided he can stay healthy. Remember, you have to trade something to get something, and that's why don't want to trade him because I don't like him. I just trading him because I think you can get something out of him. And there is an upside. I think there's still more with Yelich. Outfield, yes, says Football Dave. It's a position of strength with multiple players. Yes, trade somebody out of that outfield. Jackson says, I think Frelick should stay. I just want to see another year with him at least. I feel like there's more he could bring than just hitting. Honestly, it's brutal to see our outfielders go. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Andy says, Mitchell is an above-average outfielder. Perkins and Frelick are well above average outfielders. Yeah, defensively, the outfield, they got no complaints about anybody. Anybody you put out there defensively, they're all good. All can play. Mitchell has the biggest bat of Perkins, Frelick, and Mitchell. I'm assuming he's talking about. Frelick and Perkins have to improve offensively, and I think they will. I don't know if there's an upside with Perkins. Defensively, he's great. I don't mind keeping him around as a fourth outfielder. I don't think their outfield is lacking. Their outfield is lacking. If it ain't broke, don't fix it till it's broke. Well, this team has got to get better in the offseason. And obviously, Churio's great. Right and center field, you have to, rotating guys into some of those positions, I feel. I want to see more everyday guys. I want to see Garrett Mitchell if he can play a full season. I want to see Frelick if he's going to be in there. I want him to play. I want him to play a lot. I don't know Yelich. I'm not counting on Yelich just yet. Again, he's coming back from the back. Who knows where he's going to be? Well, that's the $1 million question, where Yelich is going to be. Obviously, my perfect outfield would be Yelich in left, Churio in right, and Garrett Mitchell in center. And Frelick would be the odd man out, unfortunately, at least for me right now. I would take Mitchell every day over Sal Frelick. That's the way I feel. I don't know how you feel. Maybe the Brewers feel differently. We're coming right back and talk a little bit about a free agent who I might have my eye on. Another one. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your first listen to every day, and I appreciate that. FanDuel, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more, where you place your bets on FanDuel. All the information is there for live betting on FanDuel. It's really easy. It's one of the best ones out there. America's #1 sports book. NFL fans, you get a big return on FanDuel right now. All sports fans, when you get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. So what you got to do, you place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $200 added into your account, whether or not that bet wins or loses. FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. When you place your first $5 bet, FanDuel, visit FanDuel.com. Go to FanDuel.com. Check it out. See how easy it is to navigate around. View that live play-by-play. So you can check out the latest numbers and plays and all that when you want to place your live bet. But again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Your first $5 bet with Gametime with FanDuel. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Down the stretch we come here on Locked On Brewers. And by the way, when you make your second listen, go to Locked On MLB. My guy Sully has got all the talk about some of this hot stove league going on, the World Series coming up on Friday. Waiting a few days for the World Series, huh? I mean, that's the way it is. These series end early, but it'd be nice if they could find a way to readjust it. As it's a Tuesday, I'd love to see some World Series baseball on TV tonight. I know some of you guys aren't down on seeing the Yankees and Dodgers. I get that. I grew up watching the Dodgers and Yankees. They were always in the World Series, I feel like, in the 70s when I was a really little kid. And here we are. You know, Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, made his name Mr. October by hitting 3 bombs off the Yankees. Suarez, Eugenio Suarez from Arizona. Now, he's a guy, another third baseman I'd have my eye on. 33 years old, the former Mariner. The Brewers obviously need a third baseman. Arizona's got the club option there for about $15 million on Suarez, a club option. But that would be a guy. Now, the problem with Suarez, he struck out a heck of a lot this past year. Strikeouts has been a problem, but he had more swing and misses and chasing bad balls than he had for any part of his career. So that was at a career high this past year. But Suarez playing me some third base, he played 158 games. The former Mariner, but I like him hitting 30 home runs for Arizona last year. Would love him. I'd give a big-time contract or third base. Have him play me some third base. You're set with those power numbers. He hit me 30 to 40 home runs at the age of 33. Now, the problem with that contract, though, for Suarez, the back end. It's like we talked with Adames yesterday with J.R. Radcliffe. Well, you know, at least Adames for the first couple of years, you know, you're good. But once you start drifting in your mid-30s with some of these guys, sometimes all bets are off. You don't know what to expect. And Suarez is already at 33. You start drifting to 36, 37, and 38. You hope the injuries don't catch up with him. You hope the power doesn't decrease. And you hope his defense doesn't decrease. But that would be my only drawback on Suarez. I'm not giving him a 4-year deal. I'll tell you that right now. It's depending what he could get out there. But we'll see first if Arizona is giving him is going to pick up that option on $15 million. Maybe they pick him up and then they decide to trade him. Who knows? All right. I covered Alonso. Alonso is going to be the big free agent at first base. The Brewers will not have to look at first baseman unless Hoskins is opting out. And I really expect Hoskins to be on this team next year. He's not going to get anywhere near that type of deal in free agency. $18 million for this year. I'd be surprised, especially coming off the knee. I think there's a lot of teams that have question marks about him. And the Brewers are locked in because to sign him for 2 years, $34 million, they had to give him that second year. And he's got that second year. So he's got all the power in this. And I think that's going to be a big question. You know, there's a piece in the paper today, Journal Sentinel. What are the Brewers going to do with spending? What's it going to be like? Yeah, they're not going to be spending $150 million in the offseason. They're not going to do that. It's probably going to be right around $120 million in the offseason. The owner, Mark Attanasio, hasn't said anything, but that's just like putting everything together. That's what you think he's going to spend. All right, that's going to do it for Locked On Brewers for today. Again, we're going to be here the entire offseason, and when news breaks, big news breaks, we are first right here in the Locked On Brewers studio, giving you all that information. Locked On Brewers, as always. Where you download the podcast, if you're watching us on YouTube, please go to Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast, and hit the subscribe button. Hit the alert right there as well. Because when you hit that alert, that's going to tell you when we drop the episode, you're going to get that alert. Maybe it's going to drop in the middle of your phone, in the middle of the night. Sometimes we cut these in the middle of the night, and you'll have it there early, fresh in the morning, on the drive home from work. You know, sometimes mid-afternoon, we do these podcasts during the off season. You'll have that for your drive home from work, whether you're sitting on 94 or 41 or wherever you're driving in Milwaukee or Wisconsin. You'll have that podcast with you. But again, our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Chuck Friedman. So long, everybody.